What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is Dr. J. Phoenix Singh coming to you to be able to answer a valued viewer's question. You guys know I love you. Please do take a second and smash that like button. Give us that big old thumbs up. Helps the channel out a ton. Be sure if you enjoy our content to be able to subscribe, watch as many of our videos on this channel as you like. And if you've got questions that you think would be relevant to the entire Navigating Academia community, feel free to post them down in the comment section below. I do try to get back to folks when I have time. If it's something where the question is sufficiently high sensitivity, then it's something where I will try to make a video for you when I have time. If it is really high specificity, such that it's really only relevant to you, then it's something where I'm going to ask you to book a paid session with me, like I do if anybody wants to work one-on-one with me. It would be a pleasure to be able to do that with you. I do it literally several days a week. It's a joy for me, so please do. I'd love to work with you if you're interested in that. You can go ahead and get in touch with me via the website below, and we can set something up. But for today, the question comes from Wayne. So Wayne, thank you so much, man, for the question. I appreciate you. What I'm going to do, per usual, is I'm going to read the screen here, which is the question on it. This is a multi-part question, so I will give you a multi-part answer as well, okay? So here we go, Wayne. Wayne asks, can you do a video on how to know which scientist is big in our field of interest and the potential of their lab? So far, I only know the H-index, but it seems to vary across disciplines. If I'm really ambitious, should I choose a young supervisor with great potential or a senior supervisor who's like a milestone in the field, assuming they're both doing research in my area of interest and are both really nice human beings? Thank you so much for your content. Okay, Wayne, great question. And it's certainly one that I think a lot of people grapple with. Everybody's trying to figure out, hey, if I want to go to grad school, especially the type of grad program where who my supervisor is going to determine a lot of things about my grad school experience. It's really important to ask yourself questions like this and to try to get answers to them. So really good question, Wayne. So let's go ahead and go through these one at a time, okay? I'm going to recap. I'm going to read each piece of the puzzle here. We'll talk about it. Number one, can you do a video on how to know which scientist is big in our field of interest and the potential of their lab? Okay. If you want to figure out who's big, first of all, every field has a ridiculous number of subfields. So for example, I remember going to my undergrad supervisor, literally my first week of my first year of undergrad. And he asked me a fateful question, which is, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a clinical psychologist. And he's like, more specific. I said, I want to be a clinical child psychologist. And he's like, more specific. And I had no idea what to say. And I remember by the time it came to apply for grad school, I was talking about things like I want to do research with adolescent males, taking a look at callous unemotionality and callous unemotional traits using face morphing technologies. That was my answer. Like, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I was super passionate about, right? Now, that's not what I ended up doing in graduate school, but it definitely is, what I set out to do, certainly. And I got into several of my dream programs. My number one dream program was a double doctorate in Minnesota, University of Minnesota, which at the time, by far, had the number one clinical child psych program in the country. Now it's been years since I've taken a look into it, so, I don't know who's there now. But when I say I don't know who's there now, Wayne, that's the most important thing, mate. The big question to ask yourself is not so much, is the individual who your target supervisor is, are they a big name within kind of psychology or whatever your field happens to be, Wayne, in general? The much more important thing is, are they a leader in the specific area that you're interested in? So for example, for me, I ended up doing, a lot of work in meta-analysis in forensic mental health. And my target supervisor at Oxford, who I had the pleasure of working with, was definitely somebody who was a leader, if not the number one person in the world, doing that very specific kind of work. So always think about a methodology and a specific, usually I say a methodology, what do I say? A methodology, a population, what do I say, guys? You guys know, you've watched enough videos, I'm sure, right? So a population, a methodology, and a phenomenon. There you go, right? A clinical phenomenon, right? So in other words, like callous unemotionality would be the phenomenon, population would be adolescence, and then a methodology would be something like, face morphing technology. So there you go, right? Like that sort of thing. When you get to that level where you know exactly what you want to research as a doctoral student or as a master's student, when you get to that level of specificity, the field becomes really, really tiny, really niche. And within something that hyper niche, you will be able to identify target scholars who are the leaders in that field. Nobody's going to tell you who they are. What you need to do is put the hours in. It takes a lot of time, right? And what you need to do is hop onto Google Scholar, hop onto, a field-specific search engine like ERIC for education or CINAHL for nursing or PsycInfo for psychology. Virtually every field has one that's dedicated to their field these days. But if you don't know, go to Google Scholar, right? Or Microsoft Academic or Semantic Scholar, you name it. And just start searching for key terms related to one of those three things: the population, the methodology, the clinical phenomenon. And what'll happen is that you're going to find, really only look in the last 3 to 5 years, right? A lot of the folks who did seminal work, the seminal work was like 15 years ago. They've moved on. They're not doing that work anymore. Or if they do, it's kind of a tiny piece of what they do now. People get sick and tired of researching stuff. I mean, I can tell you from experience. You get sick and tired of researching the same thing, even if you're really well known and you've published a lot of seminal stuff in a specific niche area. You get kind of sick and tired of it. You want to start exploring new things. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But you got to make sure that the person that you want to work with, or who your target supervisor is, that they're still looking at the kind of stuff that you're interested in looking into, right? Otherwise, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because they're not going to accept you as a grad student anyway, because what you're interested in is not what they're interested in anymore, Wayne, right? So it's not so much the big field, it is the specific niche. And you're going to find who those individuals are by doing a really deep dive into the literature, figuring out who is publishing in high impact factor journals. We have videos on the channel explaining what an impact factor is. High impact factor journals is really the way to go. Like, you want to see who is publishing in the best journals and who is looking at, the phenomenon that you're interested in looking into. Okay. So the potential of their lab. So potential is a good word. You should take a look if the lab actually has a website. You should take a look at who the current grad students are, current postdocs, current undergrads, but it's a lot less likely they'll have publications at that stage. And I want you to basically hop onto something, again, like a Google Scholar, and search all of them and see, are they getting opportunities to publish? Okay. If they're not getting any opportunities to publish, especially if it's a lab that's been around for a while, that is not a good sign. Okay. And I do recommend going into graduate programs where your supervisor has an expectation that you will be publishing. And this is one of the top 6 predictors of whether or not you will actually become successful in your career at publishing, is if you have mentors who set the baseline expectation that you're going to be publishing. It's just an expectation that you're going to be doing it, okay? So that's the first thing, Wang, okay, in terms of figuring that out. I suppose also, if you know the major funding bodies, like grant-making bodies, so like in psych, you may look, if you're in the U.S., like a National Institute of Mental Health, or NIDA, any of these kind of, SAMHSA, if you're into substance abuse stuff. These are the sorts of entities that you want to go and be looking at who is winning their top grants. That's another thing that you can take a look at if you look at potential target supervisors. If you look at their curriculum vitae, or if you look at their resume, and you find out where their current funding sources are, what their current funding sources are, where the funding is coming from, you can learn a lot about their current interests. Okay, so that's a recommendation that I have as well. So Wang says, so far I only know the H index. I think we have a video. If it's not out yet, it'll be out before the end of the year on what the H index is. Think about it basically like a personal impact factor. Okay, so Wang says, so far I only know the H index, but it seems to vary across disciplines. Trust me, Wang, it varies, man, within disciplines too. Okay, but you're absolutely right. If I'm in biomedical sciences and I'm publishing, 10 papers a year versus if I'm in, medieval history or art history and I'm publishing 1 publication a year, the H index is going to mean very different things, all right? And you can get astronomically high ones for your field, or you can have ones that seem really tiny, comparatively speaking, but in that other field, it's really high. So you're absolutely right, Wayne, that it really does differ between fields. But again, even within field, you have to keep in mind that some individuals, they don't publish often, but when they do publish, there's a massive number of citations for that work. It's really seminal. Other individuals focus on what we call salami slicing, and salami slicing basically means where you take the same data set and you have like a whole bunch of publications from it. Sometimes that's justified, but a lot of the times what happens is people just want more publications. So in that case, they have a ton of publications, but they don't have many that are cited too often. So in that case, you may have a really low H index, but a ton of publications, right? Which is not a great sign, okay? So those are things to take a look at. And usually something like Google Scholar, for example, they'll give you the H index. They also have their own thing, which is called the I-10 index. I-10 index is how many citations do you have? Like how many publications do you have where you have received at least 10 references. That's what it is, like 10 sites on that publication. Okay, that's what the I-10 index is. That's not something I put in any other video. So there's a unique thing weighing specifically for you. Okay, then weighing says, if I'm really ambitious, should I choose a young professor with great potential or a senior supervisor who's like a milestone in the field, assuming they're both doing research in your area of interest, both really nice human beings? Weighing, that is like the ultimate question, man. Well done. What I would say, I made some notes here for myself in terms of answering this, because it's a really good question. The big one in terms of choosing between what I call a rising star, like an early career, 5 to 10 years out of the doctorate, assistant or associate professor, versus a late career legend, like one of the most famous people in the field, who probably at their age can barely walk, okay? But has the most epic name in the field, whatever field you happen to be in. Between those two, the big thing to think about is, do you want an immediate payoff or long-term gratification? Long-term gratification would mean that you should definitely go with the early career rising star, who may not be really well known now, but they're sharks, right? They're being so aggressive. They're publishing all the time. They're getting grants. Even if they're early career grants, they're getting grants from really, really, like, again, these NIMHs and these sorts of guys. Like NIH gives out this thing called the K series of grants, a K mechanism. So if you see somebody who's got a K grant, whoa, that's that person, it's very promising, their career. So you may want to go with somebody like that. Obviously, depending on the country that you're in and the field that you're in and these things, it can vary all over the place. And remember, I've lived on 3 continents in 6 different countries, and these mechanisms obviously vary because of that, depending on where you are, okay? Early career rising stars are people who, they're going after it, and they know other individuals who are also early career professionals, okay? Do they know as many people? Do they know as many late career legends? Probably not, okay? That's the benefit, the major benefit of the late career legend, is that they have a big name right now. The early career person, probably, if you stick with them for the next 10, 15 years, they're going to start getting a big name, okay? So it's like an investment, okay? I'm big into investing. It's like an investment. Late career legends are people where you can say, I was trained by such and such. Excuse me. My supervisor was such and such. And that can be awesome for the short term. Maybe even it can get you some, doors opening in terms of job opportunities and these things, if maybe you and other individuals in the field have some connection with that individual. The fact of the matter is, though, is that those individuals usually don't take a lot of interest in graduate students. Not anymore. Or their labs are so massive that you're largely going to be supervised by postdocs. That happens a lot. Or they will be a secondary supervisor. Now, that's a great situation. If you can get an early career person as your primary supervisor and a big name person, like a late career legend as your senior supervisor, that's what I would suggest, right? If you have that option. But if nothing else, right, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that from my experience, having individuals who are kind of young guns in the field really is the way to go. That's what I believe. So, okay. Wayne, thank you so much for your series of questions here. I thought they were terrific. If any of you who are watching right now, you have questions as well that are high sensitivity that you think a lot of people would be interested in getting the answers to, like Wayne's question here, please do put them down in the comments below. Even if you just enjoyed the video, put it down in the comments. Helps the algorithm to be able to get that kind of interaction on this video. Smash that like button. Watch everything on this channel. I love you to death. Peace.